Clyde's Burn, the reputed source of the Clyde, rises in a hill named Clyde Law. Close by are the sources of two other well-known rivers, the Annan and the Tweed. It is peaceful here in the South Lanarkshire hills, and the river, which 100 or so miles away will broaden out into one of the world's most famous estuaries, is but a trickle of water. With the joining of the Clyde and the Dare, there is the first real semblance of a river. Numerous tributaries will join the Clyde on its way to the sea. On the left bank, Douglas Water, Neathon, Avon and Cart. On the right bank, Calder and Kelvin. The river winds among the charming and fertile country of the Scottish lowlands. For several miles, river, rail and road run almost cheek by jowl. By rail from Euston, the first glimpse of the Clyde is at Elvenfoot, where in olden times stood a Roman camp. Lamington, the river skirts the 2,300-foot high Tinto Hill, on whose summit Baal worshippers held their rites. The stretches of water in the locality of Crawford, Abington, Lamington, Symington and Thankerton provide excellent fishing. But the river has not always been the resort of such peaceful pursuits. From source to mouth, it is steeped in Scottish history. Along its shores raged the fight for Scottish independence. And how different would have been the scene in the days of Sir William Wallace, King Robert the Bruce, and later the Covenanters. Then scenes of battle, of carnage and of internecine warfare, now the peaceful angler. Near Carstairs, the Clyde turns westwards towards the county town of Lanark, a Roman fort in days gone by. Scene of many exploits of Sir William Wallace, he had a house in the castle gate, and the 12th century church contains his statue. It is near here that the river makes its first contribution to the commercial life of Scotland. Construction of the Clyde Valley Power Station has taken away from the beauties of the three falls, Cora Lynn, Bonington and Stoneybyres, but industry must be served. And well served it is by this modern power-producing plant. The fertile valley of the Clyde round Lanark is a rich fruit-growing area. Apples, plums and raspberries are extensively cultivated. The district is famous too for tomatoes, and thousands of baskets are sent yearly to the Scottish and English markets. Grapes are also grown in the hothouses. The river is now in the outskirts of the great industrial and coal mining area of Lanarkshire, and factory chimneys and furnace buildings are dotted along the horizon. The river flows through the yet green countryside between Blantyre and Bothwell. David Livingstone was born at Blantyre in 1813 and worked as a spinner in the nearby cotton mills. The echoes of great events in Scottish history still linger along the waters of the Clyde. The battle fought in 1697 between the Covenanters and the forces of Graham of Claverhouse takes its name from Bothwell Brig, a battle, incidentally, which is described in Scott's Old Mortality. And so into the heart of Scotland's industrial belt, land of blast furnaces, steelworks, pottery and paperworks. Nearly a quarter of the whole of Scotland's population live and work in Glasgow and the surrounding industrial areas. Behind it, a history extending back to the days of the Picts. For even in those distant times, it was regarded as a place of note. From a small village noted for its salmon fishing, Glasgow has risen triumphant to a city of some 1.5 million inhabitants, the commercial and industrial centre of Scotland. Glasgow made the Clyde, and the Clyde made Glasgow. This is due in no small measure to the foresight of her people. They converted the shallow river, which until the close of the 18th century could only handle small vessels, into the mighty river it is today. Glasgow has other claims to distinction. Her iron and steel industries, locomotive and bridge building are of worldwide renown. Tower Bridge, London, and the Forth Bridge are Glasgow built, and her men have gone to work in all corners of the globe. Glasgow is a city of spacious streets, modern shops, and stately buildings and great communal activity. Since the days when James Watt discovered the power of steam and Henry Bell launched the first practical steamship in the Clyde in 1812, ships from humble tugs to giant ocean-going liners, from landing craft to battleships, have been cradled on the Clyde. View the river and the industry on her banks from the deck of an LMS steamer. The clang of hammers and the machine gun rattle of riveters blend with the soft churn of steamers' propellers as the vessel glides down river past the mighty giants in the making. Here are names familiar the world over, names that are behind the tradition of excellency in design and workmanship that have made Clyde built the hallmark of all that is best in marine engineering and shipbuilding. The Queen Elizabeth, the finest ship afloat, was building on the Clyde when war broke out in 1939. After doing invaluable service as a trooper, she is back in service on the American run. The Clyde gave her birth, and the Clyde is proud of her. Dumbarton Rock, surmounted by the castle in which Wallace was imprisoned, raises its 240 feet boldly from the river. And in the distance, famed Ben Lomond. During the war years, the mightiest armadas of merchant shipping the world has ever known were assembled off Greenock and formed up in convoy ready to leave for destinations throughout the seven seas. It was at Greenock that James Watt was born in 1736. Gourock is the first of the holiday centres that lies along the shores of the Firth of Clyde. From here to the open sea, the character of the country changes. No longer the gaunt, rugged piles of the shipbuilding yards and the stark outlines of factory buildings, but some of the grandest scenery that Scotland can offer. to add interest to amusement, there is always the pageant of passing ships, continually coming and going along the busy Clyde highway. LMS steamers link the Clyde resorts. During the war, a large number of them changed the red ensign for the white, and many a tale could be told of their daring exploits. Now they serve their country in a more peaceful way. Whether making a downriver excursion on a steamer such as this, or as a passenger from one resort to another, the steamers add a thrill to holiday making on the Clyde. Across the water from Gourock is Dunoon, one of the busiest of the Clyde resorts. Popular rendezvous is Castle Hill, where a statue commemorates Burns's Highland Mary. Here are all the delights that a holidaymaker could ask: boating, bathing, fishing, golf, tennis, and so on. Holiday golf is always attractive, and nowhere more so than in Scotland, the home of the royal and ancient game. The course at Cairn is typical of those you will find along the shores of the Clyde. Though commercially the days of sail are gone, slender boats still heel to fresh breezes beneath the press of canvas. But now sailing is for pleasure, not for commerce. The Royal Clyde Yacht Club has its headquarters at Hunter's Quay at the entrance to Holy Loch. There are several clubs on the Clyde, and throughout the season the white sails of the yachts, engaged in contests or practicing maneuvers, add liveliness and beauty to the scene. Favoured with a sheltered position and commanding an inspiring view of the Firth and the distant hills, Rothesay is justifiably one of the most popular of the Clyde resorts. Here one can find all the amenities one expects of a modern holiday town, with the incomparable beauty of the Scottish landscape close at hand. No itinerary on the Clyde is complete which does not include a sail through the narrows known as the Kyles of Bute. The green wooded shores draw in where the channel winds between little islands, where it seems almost impossible to pass. But the waters are deep and the course is threaded until more open water is reached. Northwards is the way to Loch Fyne, southwards to the island of Arran. The island of Arran, standing as it were athwart the mouth of the Clyde, is to many the most beautiful of the islands of the West. Though the march of modern improvements has left its mark, an air of romance still lingers around the island and its people. Here you will find little bays and inlets, quaint villages, crofts and farmlands, rugged peaks, lonely glens and winding roads. And always the busy Clyde steamers, going to and fro between the mainland and the island. Between the coast of Arran and Ayrshire, the waters of the Clyde mingle with those of the Atlantic and the Irish Sea. She is indeed a mighty river. History has been made along her shores. Prosperity she has known, and depression. But the river remains a highway for the ships of the world, and her fame still stands unrivaled throughout the seven seas.